Hello and welcome to the morning after show presented by our good friends over at betonline.ag. My name is Joshua Reimer. I am joined by none other than Jared Block, who's over on my right. Jared, I had a pretty shitty weekend, and we'll get to that very soon. But how was your weekend, man?
Yeah, it's the nature of having your teams be either still in play or the other side of that. And I don't have very many of those right now. But again, it's I think it's just it's just the Bucks for me right now.
Yeah.
But we have baseball coming this week, so I'm gonna try to cheer you up here as the days go on because I know it's gonna be a tough couple of days for you.
Yeah, well, we're gonna talk about it. I didn't want to talk about it. I was really hoping. I was looking at Discord and I was like, it was what's going on? Doing awesome stuff. Good to have you here. First time chat from a viewer. I was looking at Discord this morning and I was like, please have Jared give some type of like, I have a dentist appointment. I have something I got to do where I'm not gonna have to go on Team Hoss this morning because I really did not want to talk about this, but we're going to talk about it anyway. Two tough segments. D Ramify says Josh needs hugs here. Hugs, I'm here. Yeah, I'll definitely need some hugs today. But let's get to it. Let's start talking about the weekend in sports because, man, even if it wasn't a good weekend for me, it still was a crazy weekend nonetheless. So let's start talking about it. Let's start with the last week of the regular season being this week. Teams usually have around 3 to 4 more games this week. No NBA today because, we have the national championship tonight. But then we have 6 days of basketball where
Mhm.
everyone play. There's around 8 games almost every single slate. And then Sunday you have the mega slate where every single team in the NBA plays. So it's going to be an exciting week of basketball for sure.
Super exciting. I find it really strange that it's like today of all days is the day we don't have any games at all.
Yeah.
That happens like twice a year maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
So strange how that worked out, but every single slate from here on out is packed Tuesday through Sunday. It's Sean's kind of going away party, going out on top. So he'll be doing a bunch of content for you guys that are signed up. And Josh and I can't wait to kind of take over here as the playoffs start with the play-in tournament next week. And there's a lot of things that happen with that play-in tournament. I just wanted to say quickly, shout out to all the people that hopped on in here early Monday morning. Also, Freddie, thank you for the follow.
Yeah, greatly appreciate it. Lots of people in here. Bacon23 saying good morning. I'm not excited for him being in here. And we have Life Augusti in here. We have Little Italy. I'm just kidding. I love you, Bacon. XY Games is at the doctor's office, but dropping in to say good morning to everybody and hope everybody has a good Monday. How nice. Yeah, let's have a good Monday for sure. Let's talk about this playoff situation in the NBA too, because we have had some of these teams clinch. We know who's going to be in the playoffs, at least to some regard, in both conferences. Western Conference has 4 teams that have locked it up. Suns, Grizzlies, Warriors, and Mavericks all have locked in their playoff chances. It might be different where they're seated, but right now, that's the 1 through 4 in the playoffs for the West. And then in the East, you have the Heat, the Celtics, the Bucks, and the 76ers all locking in their playoff chances. And you just have to decide the other 6 seeds. So, good for both conferences that their teams are getting there. And you're going to start seeing some of these teams sit some people.
Oh yeah, that's going to be the biggest week of news for that. I mean, Sunday. Thank goodness that we don't. Neither of us have to do it.
Yeah,
That's all I'll say.
I am so excited that I do not have to provide for that Sunday slate because
Yeah,
it just sounds so messy.
it's for you guys that don't know, it's a 15 game. Well, probably not a 15 game slate, but there are 15 games for all 30 teams. And I would assume that about 20 of them are resting their entire starting group. So
Yeah.
Sean's got his work cut out for him on his last day of providing for main slates. So
Yep.
it'll be fun to watch. I said I didn't even have to change the stream notification. And I don't know what day this
Uh,
was. It must have been sometime last week, but it just said it just said come give Josh some hugs. He needs it.
yeah, yeah.
And I was
Come
like,
give
it
Josh.
applies directly to today as well.
It
So,
does. It
uh,
does. Let's
and
talk.
yeah, I was watching the Bucks game when they lost to the Mavs on Sunday, and then directly after was Lakers Nuggets. So I was like, you know what? I'm working. I'll just put it on in the background. And I'm sorry, man. It's just the
Rough
team
day,
just
man.
can't close in the fourth quarter. They
Absolutely
looked
not.
Yeah, they looked really good. not really good, but they looked like they were in control of the game at least until
Yeah.
probably the midway point of the third, and then they just couldn't hit shots. They were trying to give Carmelo open looks, and he couldn't get it done. Anthony Davis was nursing an ankle slash foot thing in and out for the whole time, and then Joker just took over the fourth quarter. Man, it was just
Yeah.
unreal to watch.
Yeah, it was unreal to watch. It was a lot of fun to watch. Well, not as a Lakers fan, but it is fun to watch Joker most of the time in those scenarios. And he balled out. So it sucked, man. It definitely sucked because like you're right. This Lakers team, I will say, they looked pretty good overall until that fourth quarter, basically, and then everything went away because I kind of pulled the same thing that you did, where I watched the Mavericks game because I was excited for that game. I expected it to
Yep.
be good, and it was. And then the Lakers game came on afterwards, and I was like, yeah, I have work, but I'll put it on in the background. And so I got excited because this Lakers team playing really well throughout three quarters, but they did the same thing against the Pelicans, where they kind of just
Mhm.
weren't able to perform in the fourth quarter. So tough day at the office for this Lakers team. I want to talk about this Bucks game because this Bucks game was a lot of fun too to watch, even though you guys did end up losing this one. It was a close game all the way through, and I mean, like, you guys did lose this one, but I think you guys fought really hard in it, and I think it showed what these playoffs can really be because this felt like a playoff atmosphere through and through.
Yeah, it did. And you don't see this very much during the regular season, but Giannis played 40 minutes in regulation. Chris played 37. Drew played 36. They just could not close and keep up down the stretch. And Luka just was an absolute madman in the second half.
Yeah,
It was a pretty close game all the way throughout. And then fourth quarter, and then just the Dallas defense took over. They played really, really well on the defensive end. They had a lot of guys play 40 minutes, and they deserve to be where they are in the West. Who'd have thought the Mavericks, they clinched a playoff spot with that win yesterday, fourth in the West. They could even be third if the Warriors continue to slip a little bit. So
yeah,
I think this Dallas team, I rarely ever, like as soon as the game goes to commercial or halftime, I rarely ever keep the sound on because I don't like hearing, honestly, anything from any sports media about anybody
yeah.
during that time because it's always just a debate argument fest. So the one thing that I did hear though was that this Dinwiddie, they said that the Dinwiddie Porzingis Bertans trade between the Wizards and Mavs worked out well for both sides. I want to hear your thoughts on that and that now Dallas has an identity when they didn't before.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I agree with the fact that that trade ended up working out a little bit. Bertans was someone that like they weren't playing at first, and so I was worried he was just going to be, that 10th man that got no play time unless there was an injury or something. But they played him yesterday, and he played great. Like they were talking about, usually he's not out there because of his defense, but honestly, he had a lot of good defensive possessions against Giannis. Where I thought he looked vastly improved, and obviously, he has that 3-point shot, which was hitting at a really good rate. So I think the trade worked out because Dinwiddie does what Dinwiddie does. Dinwiddie gives them the ability to have some presence off the bench, and they clearly need that because with Jalen Brunson being in the starting lineup, Tim Hardaway being out right now, like they need that sixth man to give some energy and life to that second squad. That's what Dinwiddie does, and he does a great job of it. He did a great job of it yesterday. I think the deciding factor, the X factor of the whole trade is does Bertans work out? And after what I saw
Yeah.
yesterday, he should be a guy that gets 20 minutes during the playoffs and
Yep.
contributes greatly. So I don't know. I think it works out at the end of the day for both sides. And I think Porzingis has just been an animal for the Wizards. So like I think they're happy
Yep.
with getting him on their team.
Yeah, Washington's played very well without Bradley Beal and having Porzingis in there. Uh, for some weird reason, I don't know how that's worked out, but it has. So look to have that maybe solidify more, and we'll see what happens with Beal returns in the offseason or not. I do want to just speak to the fact that I think Dallas, while very, very solid, and their defensive efficiency numbers are crazy,
Mhm.
obviously with the pace that they play, but I think that they are missing, like Tim Hardaway not being there is definitely missed, and I think you're gonna see. I mean, they did all right. Dwight Powell had a career game in a spot where he
Yeah.
needed to play big, and I just worry how many West teams are going to be able to disrupt this Mavericks interior because the one thing that they do lack is size when it comes to being able to play big with other teams. And Bertans is probably arguably their worst defender in that rotation during the
Yeah.
playoffs.
Yeah, definitely their worst defender in their rotation. And it's tough too because of where they're seated right now. Even if they move up into the 3 seed, it's almost regardless of their matchup, they're gonna face a good big man, right? Like 5 is the Nuggets right now, 6 is the Jazz, they have Rudy Gobert, and then 7 is Cat. So like almost no matter what, you're facing a really solid big man on the other side. And having Dwight Powell as your one guy is a little bit of a struggle. So I don't know. Should be interesting to see what this Mavericks team does. I think at the end of the day, having Luka was incredible last night. Sometimes
Yeah, he was.
you really have to watch him to remember, like, wow, this guy is really, really good. Some of the passes he was making were absolutely insane, and he was a beast out there. So I don't know. As long as you have as long as you have a guy like Luka, I think you have a chance in the playoffs, and they have that guy. So we'll see what they can do in those playoffs. Let's talk about the rest of the weekend. Let's talk about all the games that happened this weekend. Let's start off with Saturday. And the biggest game here was the fact that the Nets lost to the Hawks.
Yep.
122 to 115. Big loss for this Nets team. Not decides, but definitely gives the Hawks a big advantage of playing their play-in game at home
Yep.
instead of the Nets playing their playing game at home. We should get this game repeated just in about a week's time when the play-in tourney starts up. And I mean, like, if you're a Nets fan, you got to be really scared at this point because the fact that you were as close to as healthy as you're going to be. We got the news that Ben Simmons not going to play this season, most
That's
likely
right.
not going to play in the play-in tournament. You're as close to as healthy as you can be right now, and you're still losing to a team like the Hawks. I don't know, man. That's tough for this Nets team. That's really tough.
Sure. I mean, not only did they lose to this Hawks team, they, again, I'm going to point this out every time, and you're going to see this in the playoffs even more. This game did not go to overtime, right? It's regulation minutes.
This is regulation, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Even worse.
Yeah.
Durant, 42 minutes, 55 points. Irving, 44 minutes, 31 points.
Yeah.
Other contributors scored less than 30 points. And I believe that the stat that came out of this was the first time in NBA history that a team had a guy that scored 50. The secondary's guy scored more than 30, and you still lose the game. So
Oof.
just shows that
Rough.
you can't win with this format with that they got going on right now. And maybe they do what they did last year. And I mean, is it really an upgrade to bring Blake Griffin into this rotation for the playoffs?
No. No,
Right.
it's not.
That's what I'm saying. Like they do
Yeah.
have different guys this year where, they did not have the Cam Thomases, the Kessler Edwards, but are they really going to help in this playoff stretch? Because I don't think so.
Yeah, so they didn't have Bruce Brown and Seth Curry, so they technically weren't as healthy as they're
Okay.
going to be
But
in
they
the
did have
playoffs.
Joe Harris.
Yeah, well, no, they didn't have Joe Harris, not in
Oh
this
yeah, he
game.
went out last year. That's right.
Yeah,
I remember.
like this, like I understand because like Patty Mills, like playing 31 minutes for Patty Mills and going 0 for 7, kind of you
Oh,
realize why Patty
yeah.
Mills is so like not involved with this Nets team right now. Obviously, having Bruce Brown and Seth Curry will help you out a little bit, but like you still, like you said, had 50 points from your star, you had 30 points from your secondary guy, and you still weren't able to win. So I don't know. It's a tough scene. I think at the end of the day, in a playoff scenario, they probably win against this Hawks team. But man, it's going to be a really good game, I think, and I think it'll be close all the way through.
Yep, it definitely should be. I mean, I don't know. I still like we've already established that Trae Young is the new villain of the NBA coming up in the next generation.
Yeah,
He doesn't get any love for this win whatsoever. It's more
no,
about, the Nets losing because of poor bench play, whatever the case may be. But yeah, Trae Young and this Hawks team making a super resurgence, and we already know that the East teams are locked into the plan. It's just where they end up. I don't think that there's any way that like the Knicks don't even have 5 games left anyway. So
hmm
I think that you're gonna see some massive turns here, and I guess the worst team that I feel for right now is the Cavs. Do we know if Mobley's gonna be back this week at all, or is he just gonna sit until next week?
I don't know. I don't think he is going to be back, at least from what I've seen, but I'm curious to look it up. I know at like some point last week they said he was going to sit out for the next 3 games, so we knew he was out for the entire week, but that ankle sprain was pretty bad, so it'll be interesting to see if he's good to go here because they need him. I mean, they played really well last night. We'll get to them soon when we'll get to that game soon, but they played really well last night against that 76ers team. So I feel like they still have a shot if they're a little bit more healthy. Let's talk about the other big game that happened on Saturday. The Jazz facing off against the Warriors. This one was not close. This one, the Jazz were clearly ahead in this one coming into the fourth quarter, and the Warriors just poured it on, man. I mean, at the end of the third and in the beginning of the fourth, they really just stormed back, and it brings to the forehead a problem that this Jazz team continues to have. We saw it against the Clippers last week. We saw it against the Warriors in this game. They have a real problem with closing out games right now because
Yeah,
I don't
they
know
do.
what it is, but the offense just goes stagnant. They really can't do anything. And I don't know if this attributes to it at all, but I found this really interesting stat on Twitter. Joe Ingles, who was out 2 months ago due to an ACL injury, has passed to Rudy Gobert 170 times. Donovan Mitchell has passed to Rudy Gobert 150 times, even though he's played far more games than Joe Ingles. And like we've talked about the beef that they both have and they've had for quite a while. They clearly don't like each other, but I don't know. Is that kind of showing on this team a little bit now?
I, they have some chemistry issues for sure. I don't know if it's necessarily starts and ends with those two. I mean, maybe it does. I guess they're more uh, pivotal players, and I think that if this doesn't work, then you could see either of them go. I've seen a lot of Donovan Mitchell off-season rumors coming out in the last month,
No.
more so in the last week because of all this stuff that's happened with them. Yeah, I wish that I had a stat on hand right now of how terribly their against the spread record would be in the second half of games. I don't know if that's a stat somewhere, but if it is, like if you're live betting the Jazz right now, this week, next week, the week after, you might want to just pay attention to that.
Yeah, definitely. Because this Jazz team has just looked awful whenever it comes to the fourth quarter. So should be interesting. The Warriors' new splash bros in Jordan Poole and Clay Thompson looked amazing though. Poole went 6 for 15, had 31 points. Clay went 8 for 17, had 36 points. Both of them look really good. And so it's kind of like I wonder what they plan on doing when Curry comes back because we do have an idea that Curry should come back either sometime this week or at least in the playoffs. Um, but Poole's been playing out of his mind, man. I mean, this
Yep.
guy looks like a true stud for this team, and he's been amazing night in and night out. So I don't know. You probably move Poole back to the bench, but like, is that a disservice to him considering the game he's been playing recently?
Yes and no. I think he plays well with the starting group because he's basically just replacing. He's being in the Steph role, but he's able to. I don't know. Sometimes they kind of hide stuff on both ends of the floor,
Hmm.
and let the other guys take over at other times. But I don't know. Poole's got something, and they like him a lot. And I'm sure that they're happy about keeping him around now because he's been in the talks for like the last 2 years of players that could get moved for other big guys coming in. So I do think that he's able to showcase his skills on the bench probably a little more when Steph comes back. But obviously, when Steph's not around, he can take over games just like everybody else can. So yeah, I mean, I think that opposing defenses are noticing that Poole is. I mean, maybe I don't know. Maybe they're treating him. I don't think they're treating him like Steph. So if like they're treating him like somebody else, then they're definitely feeling the wraths of that. I mean, 38 minutes and 39 minutes for Clay. I guess we can officially say that Clay Thompson's back from
Yeah,
from like
seriously.
he's able to go almost 40 minutes now.
Well, it's funny because on what day was it that the Warriors lost? Was it Thursday? I don't remember. It was some day where the Warriors recently didn't play. Oh, it was against the Suns. Clay looked awful in that game. So I was like, man, what is Clay gonna look like in a playoff atmosphere? Because his shot selection looked bad. He just looked bad. All the announcers could talk about in that game because it was an ESPN game was the fact
Yeah.
that it was just like it didn't look like the old Clay. Like they were like, oh, the old Clay would have hit that it would have been money as soon as it left his hands. And
Okay.
and he just wasn't shooting well in that game. And so like I was personally worried. I was like, wow, what is this Warriors team gonna do? But it's clear
Yeah.
that like obviously tough defense against the Suns, but it's clear that he's back and they're just gonna run him into the ground up until this playoff run and probably into this playoff run because like you said, 39 minutes for him, 38 minutes for Jordan Poole. Good game all around for that Warriors team. So let's talk about everything else. We still have a lot to cover from yesterday. We're only going to cover playoff games here. Not going to worry about the in betweens. But we talked about the Mavericks and Bucks. We talked about the Nuggets and Lakers. Let's talk about the 76ers and Cavaliers because this one was a good one down the stretch. Joel Embiid completely took over this game 44 points, 17 rebounds, 3 assists. Kind of surprised that he didn't have a 50 burger here because going up against Moses Brown defense, it seems pretty easy that you should get something like that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
it was a good game for him. James Harden triple double. Does it worry you the fact that like it was this difficult for the 76ers to win against a Cavs team that is again, like I said, very impaired when it comes to their interior defense?
Well, sure. I think so. I think
Yeah.
that the Cavs still have a very good defensive system. They've given up a lot of numbers, but they've been able to kind of balance it out just a little bit. And yeah, I know the Cavs lost tonight, but this is definitely has to look good for them in terms of obviously they'd want the win at home, but this shows that if you end up getting a good or bad dice roll, that maybe you're able to keep this. I still think the Sixers would win in a playoff series, but at least you're keeping it close. Maybe you have a shot at an upset. I think this Cavs team getting Mobley back. I wouldn't bet against them necessarily, depending on what the matchup they got. But that's the biggest thing here. I think that they are the second, or it's the second best team that I'd want to face, and the Bulls being the first team because that's going to be exploitable. Um, I don't know. I don't know if you're just thinking the same as I am on that, but this Sixers team is. I just can't. I don't feel confident in them whatsoever to get a playoff series done with any other more difficult team.
Yeah, I kind of agree. The funny thing is that we're gonna have well, we could potentially have Sixers and Bulls facing off in the first round. So
Yeah.
the two frauds of I'm not gonna call them frauds. I guess that's a little mean. The two teams that are leaning that way, at least in my eyes,
Oh, I'll
facing
call the
off. And
Bulls. The Bulls are
yeah,
frauds.
I know you're willing to call
Everyone
the
knows
Bulls
that.
frauds. Yeah, I know you're willing to be there. I'm not yet. I don't know. Should be an interesting playoff series. This moves the Cavs down to well, they already were at the 7 seed, and that puts them in a matchup with the Nets if everything were to end today. Because Nets 10.5 games back, they're tied with the Hornets for the 9th spot, but Hornets had the tiebreaker because of 3 wins out of 4 in the season series. So I don't know. Cavs against Nets. I would lean Cavs if they're getting Mobley back, man. And especially if they get Jarrett Allen back too, I would definitely lean Cavs.
Yeah, that is right. Jared Allen did decline surgery to see if he could get back in just to play it and then have surgery in the offseason. So
Yeah.
we'll see if he's really ready to go. We won't know any of that until I don't know what's the first game's like next Tuesday. So we'll find out over the weekend probably the status of those guys. Can we talk about Toronto really quick? I know that they weren't playing in a massive game over the weekend. Really, I mean, I guess they were. It was a cool matchup against the Heat, but I don't think they stood much of a chance there. Uh, can we talk about the fact that it's going to be a really difficult, or maybe just, I guess the proper word is probably going to be something like controversy about this Toronto series in the playoffs if they get home?
Yeah, so what is the deal here? Like what happens exactly for this Toronto team with the vaccination stuff if they
So,
are to host a playoff series?
yep, all this information was on the latest Woj pod. So, if you guys don't know what that is, it's obviously ESPN run podcast. So, they said over the weekend that they had started interviewing teams because they were, there's a lot of things going on with restrictions in Toronto at the moment. And I don't know if you're going to see this for baseball or not, but at least for basketball, they are requiring everybody to, if you're playing in the game, you have to be vaccinated. So
Hmm.
if the Nets were to somehow catch the Raptors in the playoffs at some time, Kyrie would not be able to play in those road games if it's in Toronto. Now,
Interesting.
as far as the other teams go, there have only been two teams that actually came out and told ESPN that they are fully vaccinated. Those two teams, the Miami Heat, the Milwaukee Bucks. You have
Yeah.
the other teams, Boston, Philly, Brooklyn, and a few others that actually the Celtics were the team that they said had failed to decline that. And they were just talking about how they didn't say who the players were, but they said that minus Robert Williams and potentially down how many players that could actually be a struggle spot for Boston. And now because Boston is the hype team in the East at the moment. They've
Hmm.
looked really really good, 8-2 in the last 10 games. Their second half of the year has been absolutely incredible on all fronts. And now they're in the 2 seed, and they've already locked up their playoff spot, and they're going to get a potential, if they switch spots with the Bucks or somehow things fall where one of these teams has to play the Raptors at least 2 games on the road, that can swing a playoff series.
Yeah, it certainly could. It'll be interesting to see like if that Celtics team does end up playing them. Who exactly will have to be out and what happens in that scenario because it is an interesting one and it's I don't know, it's gonna be fun to keep up with at the very least. NBA drama is always fun to keep up with, so should be a good time. All right, anything else for NBA? We have ran way over. We've talked about NBA
Yeah.
for 30 minutes. It needed to be talked about. There's a ton of good games this weekend, so we're going to have even more good games this week. You're going to have a ton of playoff atmosphere type games, and they're going to be a lot of fun to watch. But I think that's it for NBA. Let's talk about college basketball and talk about how there's national championship tonight with Kansas facing off against UNC. Kansas 4-point favorites with the total being at 151 and a half. Let's talk exactly how these games broke down. First, we'll start off for Kansas Villanova to try to delay the inevitable here. But Kansas came out to a storming lead against Villanova. Villanova had some fight in them, though. Down the stretch, this Villanova team tried their best to keep things close. I think at the end of the day, it was the fact that Kansas just had the bigger guys, and they
Yep.
just looked to be very size dominant. It almost looked like UNC versus St. Peter's. Like it didn't, the size wise, it didn't even look like a even close matchup. So,
Yep.
it was pretty easy to see that Kansas was going to run away with this one. And at the end of the day, it started getting close, but they had some very clutch 3-point shooting that ended up having the Kansas team win. What do you think about the Villanova game?
Yeah, it was kind of a snoozer in the first half, and then things got a little bit better as the game went on. Um, I think that I was sort of rooting for Villanova, but this whole Kansas rock chalk thing has been really undeniable to kind of pay attention to. I think the spread was 4. Yeah, like that was
Wow.
if that was a spot. Like I laid that on Saturday. That was obviously a big dub there. I felt fairly confident, and then all of a sudden you start coming back a little bit in the second half. And it was going to be a game for a tiny bit. I think there was like a 3 or 4 minute window where things actually looked like it could come down to the wire. But then Kansas completely closed the door on that. Really good 3-point shooting down the stretch. Man, Agbaji was 6 for 7 from three. That's and like scoring almost all of his points from the 3-point line, which is crazy. So,
No.
yeah, they were the bigger team, like size wise, and just showing up when it mattered.
Yeah, definitely showing up when it mattered for sure. Let's talk about this second game with my team Duke losing to UNC 81 to 77. This was a nail biter through and through, man. I mean, this was one of the best college basketball games I think I've watched all season, probably in the past 5 years. It was all the way down to the wire without a doubt, and we see UNC come out on top. Duke's usual problems, that their usual woes with bad guard defense and not defending the 3-point line very well, ended up hurting them. And Duke couldn't get it going from 3-point range. They were kind of not doing well from the free throw line, and that decided the game. So, what do you think about this Duke team and Coach K's last game?
Yeah, so I guess first thing to start off, I mean, this people are saying, and I don't know if I 100% agree because I'm not as invested in the rivalry, but they're saying that this is a top 3 game of all time between these two teams. Probably one that you could arguably say meant the most, or like at least in the top 2 in that category. So coming in, like obviously it doesn't matter what seed that these teams are anymore. People should realize that and know that by now.
Yeah.
And the game did stay close the whole time. It actually It did hit the over. Wow. I'm surprised because like the first 10 minutes of the game, they were both under like 12 points. So
Uh-huh.
the scoring came in late, obviously on both sides. Second half scoring was much better than the first, especially for UNC. And just felt like there were 3 or 4 pivotal moments in the second half where, Duke had a comfortable lead for a while. By comfortable, I mean 3 to 5 points.
Yeah.
Um, and then North Carolina would get it back, and then Duke would get it back, and it would just ping pong the entire night. I think the biggest thing, though, um, outside of Paulo Banchero just being an absolute like that was it was even against North Carolina, and I know some of those guys have NBA talent in them, but there's just no. He's playing with high school kids. Like he shouldn't be allowed. He shouldn't have been allowed to play in
Yeah.
D1. He should have just gone straight to the NBA this year.
Seriously.
Uh, 39 minutes. Like the final stat line's not going to jump off the page to you necessarily, but he was everywhere. And you make a couple more baskets here and there, you make your free throws, and that is what it is. But the biggest thing for me was that North Carolina came in with a plan. And do you possibly know what I'm going to say here? Because I think it stands out and jumps out like a sore thumb when you're looking at the numbers.
Out rebound, maybe? I don't know what you're gonna say here.
Well, possibly. No, they made a plan and they went ahead and they attacked Mark Williams
Oh, yeah.
time after time after time in the first half. They got him to draw a second foul with like 15 minutes to go in the first half, and then that was it. I think that was really, I mean, like it wasn't the game changer, but I think it was enough for North Carolina to be able to be as physical as Duke. Because Mark Williams is like literally as like I'm not gonna say as close to Shaq, but he's 7 foot,
Yeah.
250 pounds. Like,
Yeah.
good luck. Like I know Baycott's a big boy, but you can't match up with that, or at least try to be successful with that. So, Mark Williams only playing 17 minutes, and really, I mean, he's Coach K. I know that I don't know if you might regret this later, but he completely slammed Mark Williams in the post game, missing those 2 late free throws and getting in
Yeah.
foul trouble early in the game. So those 2 late free throws obviously are the highlight, but I think that North Carolina stuck with a game plan, and they were able to get the job done in the interior, even with Baycott being sidelined for what I thought. Like I was watching this game at a friend's house, and as soon as Baycott hit the floor, I knew that he was selling it a little bit,
Yeah.
and he was like, he went. There was a 30-second window from him being on the ground to then being walked off with 2 players not walking at all, then him running to the bench and then going to the sideline to get a shot and probably come back in the game. It's kind
Yeah.
of funny how that worked out, but uh, yeah, I mean, I think the Mark Williams thing was probably the biggest thing that could have happened to them.
Yeah, Mark Williams was huge. I don't know. I understand what Coach K did with benching him throughout the whole whole first half after those 2 fouls, but it kind of decided the game and kind of decided the vibe of how the game was going to be played. So
Yeah.
it sucked him not making those late free throws, and it was a tough game to watch, man. It was really tough. But UNC faces off against Kansas tonight, and what is sure to be a good championship game. Last thing, and we'll end off talking about men's college basketball here. But do you think Paulo's #1 overall pick? I've had this discussion with several friends who are also Duke fans, and they all say yes. I feel a little hesitant because I feel like Chet Holmgren's always going to get that hype, and I feel like there's going to be plenty of
Yeah.
guys that get that hype. But like you said, Paulo looked like a man among boys out there. Like every single time he touched the ball, he looked really good. And like you said, the stat line's not going to impress you, but if you watch that game, you will realize truly how dominant Paulo Banchero was throughout the whole entire game.
Yeah, I think that he has made his case for a #1 seat or a #1 overall pick. I just think it's going to come down to whoever wins the lottery at the end of the day. So I
Yeah.
think he's the #1 overall guy. I think we could easily look at this and in 5, 6 years when he's becoming a breakout type player, and you see Chet Holmgren probably playing 10 to 15 minutes on the bench in a rotation somewhere.
Yeah. Should be interesting to see what this NBA draft looks like. All right, let's move on. Let's talk about women's college basketball because we had South Carolina win 64-49 against UConn, a big win, their second title under Coach Staley. I did not get to watch this game. I wish I did because I heard it was pretty good for
Yeah.
the South Carolina team. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I mean, going up and whenever you're facing the UConn women's program, it's like it's basically at the level of North Carolina Duke in men's. Like, there's really
Yeah,
not much more you could get out of that. So, South Carolina looks to have this early dynasty type feel here. Two titles in this coach's regime. It just looked like a dominating start to finish. I mean, I watched more of the second half than the first half, and um, it was just really not close down the stretch. I mean, South Carolina kind of just shut the door, and it was one of those things. I was completely opposite of the men's league this year, where I just think that there was just complete domination from start to finish throughout the entire season. South Carolina finishes 34-2 on the year.
yeah, absolutely insane. All right, anything else for college basketball? If not, Jared, let's talk about the NFL news that we had this weekend because we had a good chunk of it. It was actually a pretty exciting weekend in the NFL.
Yeah, it actually was. So I'm gonna let you take the first one
Yeah,
because I think that'll make you cheer up a little bit, and I can't say
yeah.
anything good about this.
I guess you can't say anything good about it. Yeah, it does make me cheer up a little bit. Frank Gore announces his retirement plans, and he decides to sign a one-day with the 49ers, one-day contract with the 49ers. Good for him. About time, right? Like, I feel like we all knew this day was coming. It felt like maybe he stayed a little bit too long as soon as he signed with the Jets and decided to actually play there. But, signing with the Niners, his team that he really his claim to fame, basically, and it's a good feel good story for Frank Gore.
Yeah, he finishes third all time running rushing yards, and also the can we? I think, man, I can't remember now. I think the guys that he was around in his draft, in the same round that he was drafted in, had like a total career rushing yards of like under 3,000 yards,
Oh
uh,
yikes!
which I think is just indicative to one. Personally, I think that. Longevity stats in football are incredible. I think
Yeah,
that like those just stand for themselves. So while he might have been kind of a shell of himself for the last 5 to 7 years, I still think that that's worth something. So I
yeah.
think that yeah, and the chat's all saying, I think we all agree. I think he's a first ballot Hall of Famer, no doubt. He just, probably could have retired earlier, but the fact that he was able to stick it out right before his son came in the league certainly is something that's really cool for football specifically. You guys can still roster him for one more day because he's going to be on the FanDuel and DraftKings boards for one game.
There you go. What is going to be really funny is seeing his son come into the NFL and still getting to roster a Frank Gore because I'm pretty sure his
Yep.
son is Frank Gore Jr. So,
Right.
we're going to be stuck with a Frank Gore running back room for I don't know 30 plus years at this point. It's insane.
Yeah.
It'll be fun to watch for sure. All
Uh,
right.
Kai's got it. Kai's got it. Yeah, that's what I
Uh,
was referring to. He was a third round pick. The guys in the first round that were picked above him were Ronnie Brown, Cadillac Williams, JJ Arrington. The two more like Cadillac's probably the only real notable one. Arrington was something, and then injuries and just inefficiencies kind of drove him out of the league. But yeah, I mean, I believe that those first round backs totaled something of like less than 3,000 total rushing yards between the four or five of them.
Insane. Let's talk about the other NFL news that we had this weekend because we had a big trade happen for the Patriots and the Dolphins, which you don't usually see those in division trades happen, but they happened here. Patriots acquire Devontae Parker from the Dolphins.
Mhm.
This allows Miami to get a few picks and also allows them to get a deal done with their quarterback Xavier Howard, which was a big deal because they're kind of going back and forth when it came to that. So Patriots get their wide receiver. I don't think one necessarily, but they get a wide receiver, which they desperately needed because you look at that wide receiver room. I was talking about this with some buddies this weekend when this trade happened, and I was like, man, that wide receiver room is a bunch of nobodies because it's like Kendrick Bourne and Jacob. I mean, like Jacoby's good, right? And Kendrick Bourne had a pretty good season, but you had Devontae Parker, and this wide receiver room does improve quite a bit.
Yeah, it does. I think that man, they have Ty Montgomery on this team as a wide receiver. Interesting. Nelson Aguilar also on that list, massive contract. I mean, I think Bourne did prove himself enough to be in a spot where he gets like 70% of the snaps, but I'm gonna be like they're basically just getting a bigger Jacoby Myers, right?
Yeah, I guess so. I guess you're right. He is just basically a bigger Jacoby Myers.
Yeah, that's I'm confused. I don't know why they did this, but I mean, I don't know. It works out for Miami because they get to now kind of I think that they already had this in mind and they were kind of shopping Parker behind the scenes, but they kind of know what they want. I think that Miami's turning into a spot that has an identity, and Parker doesn't fit that mold with them.
Yeah, and also their wide receiver room. They have so many guys there with Tyreek Hill
They
now.
have
Like,
a lot of them that could do the same thing.
yeah,
So
exactly. A lot of them that can do the same thing for sure. So, kind of narrowing down that wide receiver room was definitely a good thing for that Miami team. Let's keep talking about everything that happened in the NFL. We found out that the Texans signed Marlon Mack to head their four-headed backfield. This is funny. Rex Burkhead. I don't even know the other names, but it's a bunch of guys that you don't want to hear about, most likely. Mack going back to the AFC South after being with the Colts for so long. Now here. There was always rumors that Mac might end up on the Chiefs, might end up on one of these high-powered offenses to, kind of inject some life into them. But going into the Texans definitely seems like the bottom of all that when it comes to a place to sign. What are your feelings on this Mac signing?
yeah, I so do we am I confused that his is David Johnson not on this team anymore?
I don't know why he wouldn't be, unless he was a free agency.
Or like guys tell us because we haven't been paying attention to NFL for a while. So did he go? But did he go somewhere?
Nope,
His Wikipedia page says Arizona, but that's definitely not
that is
accurate.
definitely wrong. Yeah, he's still
Um,
on. They still have him on.
okay, because
Uh,
he doesn't show up on the. If you Google Houston Texans running backs, he does not show up on the list at the moment.
Interesting.
Uh, I think the obviously the NFL sites say he does, but it's Rex Burkhead, Royce Freeman, Dare Ogunbowale, and now Marlon Mack. I know that they've had like I don't know 18 running backs that they should have had over this play, but it's gonna be really disgusting once again for the Texans.
Maybe he's not on this team anymore because I just looked up the depth chart for the Texans on ESPN and Rex Burkhead's the number one, Dare's number two, Marlon Mack's number three. That's not going to be the same, and Royce Freeman's number four. So maybe we're missing something here where David Johnson's not on the Texans. I don't know. We'll have to look into it after the show a little bit, but definitely
Well,
interesting. Um,
drama.
yeah, drama for sure. Um, I don't know. Max should have a good home here. Should get some touches and be able to kind of prove himself because I'm pretty sure it's a 1 year deal, so he has the chance to sign somewhere else if he can prove himself a little bit. Let's talk about Bobby Wagner. We know he got cut from Seattle. Now he signs with the Rams, a 4 year deal with the Rams. Big deal too. I mean, Rams just looking to re-solidify that lineup and go back at it again in 2023 or 2023 Super Bowl. What do you think about this signing?
It was interesting. The first thing I did was I scoffed at it because I don't like this. It's like the rich get richer situation. I don't know. I think that the Rams obviously still have their window open a little bit longer. You can't say that they don't because they just won the Super Bowl. So I just feel like, when you win the Super Bowl, when you get to the Super Bowl in general, everything has gone right for you for the majority of things. I know that the Rams went over a little bit of more turbulence than a lot of people did, but I will just say that I don't have a great feeling about that working out for them.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting. I don't know which way to lean on the end of the day. Like, I think it is a good signing, but I know it's a 4 year deal, so you're signing him for a really long time. And what I'm curious to see how old is he going to be on the fourth year of that deal? Because right now he is 31, so fourth year of that deal he'll be 35. That's tough, man. That's a long time to keep a linebacker like that who has so many miles on him already just because of all the time he's played for that Seahawks team. I don't know. Should be interesting. I think at the end of the day, they had no quality linebackers. And so adding Wagner, even if he's going to be, not the same guy he was before, is still important for this team. So at the end of
Yeah,
the day,
we'll agree.
Yeah,
We'll
good
agree.
signing.
Um,
Go
there are
ahead.
15 running backs that are free agents, and David Johnson's one of them.
That's crazy. And Melvin Gordon's one of them.
Yep.
We just had our AP put this in here. I'll go through this list too. Melvin Gordon, free agent. All these guys are free agents. Tariq Cohen, Jalen Richard, Philip Lindsay, Devontae Booker, Sony Michelle, Carlos Hyde, Latavius Murray, Devontae Freeman, Jarek McKinnon, Peyton Barber, Le'Veon Bell, Alex Collins, Wayne Gallman, and David Johnson. Interesting list there. I think that list will cut down a lot after we get through the draft. I think teams are waiting to see if they can get their guy that they really like from the running back room from this combine because it was a pretty good running back year this year. So I think some teams are just waiting for that, but after that you'll see some of these guys end up signing.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of December DFS plays. That's what it sounds like.
Yeah, yes it
But I will.
does.
Melvin Gordon's very solid, I still think, and I mean, keep an eye where Alex Collins goes. Keep an eye on Latavius Murray. I don't know. David Johnson, if he can stay healthy, could get a role where he has like 18 touches a game, maybe 12, and
I
he's
guess.
going to be. I think that there's still something there, but he's been on teams that just don't use him correctly. So
Yep.
outside of Arizona, obviously, let's continue. Let's move on. We'll be able to talk football forever. So let's move
Yeah.
on to spring training here and call this one a day.
Yep, let's talk about spring training. We've had a lot of injuries happening over the past few days. Pitchers are dealing with a good amount of injuries. We had Scherzer get injured. He's day to day right now with I think right hamstring tightness. We got the bad news that on April Fool's Day of all days to get this news too.
Yeah,
Degrom getting injured. I don't know exactly what
I
this
thought that was a joke.
yeah, I think everyone thought it was a joke until I
Huh.
think Bob Nightingale ended up tweeting about it and was like, "Oh wait, this is probably real about Degrom." Degrom getting injured is a big deal. Out for a month now with that injury, not throwing anymore, completely shut down. So that's going to be something to definitely pay attention to. Already a hit to this Mets team that built so much up during the offseason. Should be interesting to watch. Lance Lynn dealing with an injury as well. I think you'll see a lot of this. I think the fact that this was so rushed, just because of the CBA negotiations and such, I think you will see a lot of injuries this year, especially to pitchers who haven't had that correct amount of time to warm up.
Yeah, you're going to see that a lot, and it's just one of those things that happens when you don't have enough time to adjust, and you're going to go from everybody playing in warm weather, and then you're going to go, most of the league plays in 40, 50 degrees in the first few months of the season, so should be a lot of that kind of thing, a lot of early rotations, a lot of early pulls, and it's going to be something to monitor, especially, that's basically what our job is for the first month or two of the season, depicting when and where on how long these guys are going to go. So, yeah, I mean, it's been 0 days since the last Mets nonsense, and it's not going to continue, or it's not going to, stop anytime soon. So,
That's a graphic that we need for the
oh,
Twitter
I have
handle.
it saved somewhere. Yeah,
Yeah, that's a good one for sure. Big news as well: the Padres getting Sean Manaea to add to their starting rotation from this Athletics team. Got him for literally pennies on the dollar, man. Like insane,
right. Yeah.
insane win of a trade here for this Padres team, and it rounds out. I mean, I know we don't like the Padres, but this might be the best rotation in all of baseball now. It should be
Yep.
interesting to see what happens with Mike Clevenger. He's starting the year on the injured list now. But if Mike Clevenger is healthy, this rotation files out as Yu Darvish, Blake Snell, Mike Clevenger, and Manaya. And I feel like I'm missing a name somewhere. Is it Paddock that I'm missing?
Paddock moved in over the weekend, so he's not going to
Paddock
be there
moved?
anymore. Yeah, he's not on San Diego anymore.
Where did he get
I
traded to?
believe Chris Paddock. I
No way.
know that yeah, he did. Um, I saw it. So let's see.
I saw them discussing a trade with the Mets,
Maybe
but
maybe he didn't actually go,
yeah, he
but
didn't.
let's
I don't
see.
think he actually got traded. I think they were discussing a trade with Dominic Smith with the Mets.
Was it
But
the Mets? Yeah.
uh-huh.
Okay. Never mind.
Which is really interesting. We were talking about that in the MLB chat. The fact that they were
Oh,
ready to
here.
put
Yeah.
Paddock and Pete Alonso on the same team.
It says that the trade actually the Mets said no eventually, but it did get posted that it was Hosmer, Paddock, and Emilio Pagan for Dominic Smith.
Yeah, big. I mean, like
Huge.
that's a
Like
huge
that's kind of
trade.
weird.
Yeah, I mean, like I know Dominic Smith is talented, but I don't know if he's I don't know if he's that talented. By the way, Paddock gets left off that list. I completely forgot. You have Joe Musgrove in that starting
Yeah.
five,
There
so
you go.
that's the
Well, he
name I
doesn't
was
really
missing.
fit. Yeah, he doesn't really fit the mold anymore. If they want to go 5 deep.
Yeah, so I think they are looking for somewhere to trade him. I'm already seeing 23 hours ago MSN.com saying that Yankees could end up going for Paddock, which would be interesting. I love Chris Paddock, so I'd be thrilled about that. But we'll just have to see. I don't know what Cashman's going to do there. But regardless, goes back to the point that Padres absolutely get a steal here with Sean Manaea. Potentially have the best rotation now in
Yep.
all of baseball.
Yep.
Potentially the best pitching staff in all of baseball, including the bullpen too. So should be interesting to see what this Padres team can do if they can actually live up to the hype. I feel like that offense might have some troubles without Fernando Tatis for the first few months. We got the news that Verlander actually okay to start opening day. Should be interesting to see what Verlander is going to do. But I'm excited to see him back. I feel like a lot of people are excited to see him back, and if he's good to go, I think he's going to be a big help to this Astros team that was struggling for some pitching last year.
Yeah, he was. They decided like last week that he wasn't good to go. Now all of a sudden he is good to go. That's a little bit worrisome. But I do think that he's going to start to. It's going to be a while probably before we get to see him in his 7 to 8 inning type performances. But I expect them to take a pretty cautious approach. They don't want to double down and do the exact same thing that they did last year.
Yeah, definitely don't want to double down and do the same thing they did last year. So will be something to watch out for. And then last thing on this list, 3 days until baseball happens. We are right around the corner. 3 more sleeps, and then we have opening day and opening day DFS, which is going to be a lot of fun. All right, Jared. Well, do we want to do blind dogs really quickly? Do we want to get this out of the way? We're not going to be doing this for much longer, but I think we should do it at least today, and then
Yep.
get out of here.
I think we're doing it 3 more days and then we'll stop on Thursday.
Yeah, we have something else planned once it comes to that. But Jared, we have 4 games today for the NHL. I don't know how Friday went for either one of us, but give me your pick over here.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and take the. I'll go on a limb here and take Columbus at plus 205 at home.
Nice. I will take the Kings plus 152 at home, and thank goodness that this will be done soon because I'm done with NHL blind dogs. It's been fun. I feel like we've kept our commitment. We kept our commitment for 3 months now. That's how long we've been doing this,
Mhm.
and I think we're probably pretty in the red when it comes to all of our picks at the end of the day. Jared, any final thoughts before we get out of here?
It sounds like the Mariners just announced that Julio Rodriguez is going to be with them for the start of the regular season.
Big. Number 3 prospect overall in the MLB. He had an absolutely amazing spring. I think he hit around 400. So it's going to be a lot of fun to watch him, and I'm curious to see where they put him in the lineup because he is a stud. I'm excited for that.
Yeah, yep. We're huge. Oh, yeah, there it is officially as of 50 minutes ago. So there you go. 3 days till baseball, national championship tonight. Yeah, I'm totally out of all March Madness runnings. So good luck to you all that are still at the top of your brackets.
Yep, for sure. Good luck indeed. Thank you guys for hanging out on this early Monday morning. We greatly appreciate it over here. And come to tune into the show whenever you guys want. We're going to be live every day of the week from now on. We're live on Thursdays too, now that my schedule's changing up a little bit. So thank y'all for coming to hang out, and make sure to come hang out tomorrow as well. As always, my name is Joshua Reimer. Good morning and good skill.